Oh, Konami, you honestly think you can axe Silent Hills, fire Hideo Kojima, ruin Metal Gear, and think it's alright to put Castlevania on Netflix before making another game? Oh my god, this looks so cool. Okay, I'll be honest. When I first heard that Castlevania was getting a show, I was skeptical. I'm sure everyone was. But that trailer? Oh man, I'm now totally on board. Sure, I would like a game more than a show, but if we're gonna get something at all, I'll take the show. And the premise is absolutely perfect. The Netflix show takes place during the events of Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Now, if you don't know the video game series, you're probably wondering why the third one. Well, at the time, Dracula's Curse was the first chronologically. You see, the story of Castlevania primarily involves a vampire hunter taking down Dracula. Every century, give or take, Count Dracula returns from the dead, and it is up to a member of what is known as the Belmont clan to kill him with the legendary whip, the Vampire Killer. He always comes back in his castle, which is
a creature of chaos.
Meaning the castle changes form not only to make a new setting, but to give the games more variety. The current Belmont is then tasked with the duty of hunting Dracula and must make his way through the Count's giant castle. From there he defeats countless enemies like skeletons, knights with throwing axes, and floating Medusa heads? Alright, look, the game is from a different time. They had to work with what they had. The Belmont then finally face Count Dracula and ends the current nightmare. There are a ton of games in the series, and sometimes not even involving the Belmonts or Dracula, for the most part. After the Super Nintendo days, the plots can actually get fairly intricate. For now, we'll just focus on Dracula's Curse, seeing as how that's what the Netflix show is based on. In Dracula's Curse, the first Belmont to defeat Dracula in the series, again at the time the game was made, was Trevor Belmont. Alongside him were Sypha Belnades, a sorceress, Grant Dynasty, a pirate, and Alucard, the vampire-human hybrid son of Dracula. In the game, you could switch between Trevor and a partner character, and each character had their own specific abilities. The story itself is very simple. Dracula causes devastation to a Europe set in 1476. Trevor goes on his journey to slay Dracula and his monsters, and meets the others along the way. Together, they end Dracula's terror, and his castle crumbles, bringing peace to the countryside. That is, until he inevitably returns once more. To me, it makes perfect sense as to why they would pick this game for the show. It's simple enough to allow an adaptation to take some liberties. After all, this was an NES game. Those weren't really known for their story-heavy titles. So I'm interested to see what story they add. But there are enough characters and plot that it would make a good story. In the first Castlevania, it's just one character facing an onslaught of enemies. Maybe they could make a short film, but that's about it. Same goes for the second game. But Dracula's Curse is old enough to need some kind of reboot, loved enough that fans could appreciate the idea, and again has a cast to make it work. I mean, think about it. Dracula's own son wants him dead. I'm sure that will make for some great scenes and dialogue. Another staple in the Castlevania series is Death. Death is Dracula's right-hand man. He is always a boss in the game. If Death isn't there in some shape or form, I'll be disappointed. In fact, it would be cool if there were a lot of Universal monsters in the show as well. The Mummy and the Wolfman, to name a couple, are also mainstays in the series. The team needs some baddies to blow through on their way to Castle Dracula, so they would be more than welcome. After all, the Universal monster movies were a big inspiration behind Castlevania. The game serves as a big homage to the films. Although Universal is trying to redo the whole monster movie thing with their new Dark Universe, so it's hard to say if including the monsters would be a good idea regarding copyright and all that. The final most interesting bit about Dracula's Curse is that there are multiple paths to go through. This was very new for the game series, as they used to be very linear. There are only 4 episodes though, so it remains to be seen if the video game levels will appear at all, or if they'll just skip to the castle. The endings depended on who you beat the game with. Granted, the endings weren't the most amazing pieces of writing. Each character had their little paragraph, and there's even an ending for just Trevor. I'm wondering if they'll focus on one ending, or include every ending, seeing as how that would actually be pretty easy. Or maybe they'll make their own ending. What if Sypha and or Grant die during the show? That would be intense, and maybe drive Trevor forward even more. Another thing I don't know is, will the show end with Trevor winning? Will the entire Netflix series be based on Dracula's Curse? Or will each season cover a different game? It would be great if the Netflix show ended up serving as a beautiful overview for the older games. Could you imagine seeing Richter in modern animation? Now that'd be awesome. I really hope the show is good. In fact, after I watch it, I will make a comparison between the show and the game and give my full thoughts on both. Until then, that was the Mythology this Monday.